one of the change things when I was in change management that was happening in the UN system was this concept of external oversight. And this is the beginning was that after the second Iraq war in 2001, 2002, there was a commission set up in United Nations to examine how UN performed after the first Iraq war of 91 to manage the proceeds from the Iraqi oil. Because what had happened is in 91 when Iraq invaded Kuwait, then the Allied forces overcame that. Then they had created a program called Oil for Food program, meaning that all the proceeds of the oil revenue of Iraq was put in an escrow account. Then the United Nations was asked to use that money for food and medicine.
Today I have a good fortune of sitting down with a living history. Did you know Dr. Suresh Sharma was the first and only person to sit for an ACCA exam from Nepal? And so today I have here him as a guest, and we'll talk about his professional journey. And he's currently retired, but he also serves as vice chair for UN Independent Auditors Advisor Committee. So let's welcome Dr. Sharma. Dr. Sharma, welcome to the Officer Accountant Podcast.
Thank you very much, Sushil. It's my privilege to be able to talk with you and share my experience with professional colleagues.
Thank you. So I started with your story where I said that you are the first person to ever sit for an ACCA exam in Nepal, and would you like to tell me about that story?
Right. Well, I will tell in chronological order. Sure. I started working when I was 16 in the United Mission to Nepal. That's a missionary group in Nepal. Many of you may know. They used to run hospitals, schools, and so forth. So, and I continued my study after finishing bachelor's and master's. Then I was looking for something to do. Then I had a good fortune to meet an ACCA from England. Right. She was the internal auditor of the United Mission to Nepal, and she told me about ACCA. Well, mind you, there was no internet at that time, so a couple of booklets that she provided, and I started looking for information in the library, British Library. What I realized at that time is ACCA was the only professional accounting organization which allowed membership from overseas with experience gained with any professional accountant. Now, compared to that other Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales, you had to work in England and Wales with a member of its own institute. So that encouraged me, and I started writing. And of course, the first, and it's funny, I have not kept that letter, but it's funny that when I wrote to them that would you open a center in Kathmandu, and their first response was that we are sorry, we are not going to open a center in Kathmandu because Indian government did not cooperate with us in our previous effort and all that.
Right. So let me interrupt you. Why did Indian government's cooperation was needed to establish a center in Nepal?
Well, that's the funny part. Is rather than asking the question as you asked, what I wrote back is that well, Indian government may not have cooperated with ACCA, but I have no doubt Nepal government will cooperate, and also because India has its own Institute of Chartered Accountants, Nepal does not. So in an indirect way, I told them that Nepal is not part of India, and Nepal is a different country and without an Institute of Chartered Accountants. So in response to that, I think they must have realized their mistake. They said, okay, we'll try. And then I sat in the British Council.
What year was it?
The correspondence was in 1973. And I think it was November of 73 when I sat down, or I have to check, I still have some of the paper, but 73, 74. The reason is that after they accepted, we'll open a course, then I send in my transcripts of bachelor's and master's. And at that time, ACCA had 18 paper course.
Right.
And I got exemption in 7 papers because they were, I had already done masters here. So I had to take exam in 11 papers, of which 8 were the advanced and 3 were mainly legal.
Right.
So it was based on UK law, the UK commercial law, UK company law, those sort of things. So I have to find a source to study for that exam. ACCA just gives the exam; it doesn't hold classes.
Right.
Then again, with the help of my guru, I would say Dorothy Bloom, I located a college in England.
Right.
It's called Rapid Results College, and I negotiated with them. So in fact, I paid a lump sum for 2.5 years for them to coach me for this 11 topic.
Right.
Thinking back, it sounds not true.
Right.
I paid £96 at that time,
Right.
just £96, and I was covered for several 2.5 years. And United Mission to Nepal also funded that, because there was a question of foreign currency going to Rashtra Bank and so forth.
Right.
But the United Mission paid that £96, and I was enrolled.
Right.
Then when I was enrolled, I started getting paper. And the way I studied was that they would have different volume, and I would study several chapters, take a self-test every week, and after a month, and when the course was complete, then I would write and send the answer by post back
Right.
to England.
Right.
And they will, one master will review that and send it back
Right.
to say, okay, you are ready. So then fortunately I passed all those, each of those lots, and one paper I had to do it again, and it was on liquidation and something new I had not studied before.
Right.
So and in 1976, I took the second last exam, and 77 I finished. So when I finished, then I applied for membership.
Right.
And it was relatively easy for me because I already had enough experience after my high school, after my master's. I had already been working 7-8 years at professional level.
Right.
So I became a member, and well, I was the first one to sit in the exam, and it's funny that I had to pay. The first I remember, I paid British Council 45 Nepali rupees.
Right.
For 3 hours of invigilation of the invigilator. So when I finished that and I became a member, a couple of other colleagues or friends had gone to England,
Right.
studied ACCA, but they had come back to Nepal and they were practicing. So probably because of their practice, they were not eligible for membership yet. And it is because of that I also happened to be the first one from Nepal.
Yeah.
And very closely after I became a member in November 77, then one late Mr. Jain became a member, and Pratap Pradhan, you might know him, he became another member. So there are many of my friends who are just watching me whether you can do it or not, because nobody had done that. Unfortunately, I was able to get through.
Right. So I'm trying to imagine what life was back then, right? So in 72, 73, there was no the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nepal. There were no other accounting bodies. There were no resources available. You had to get resources from England. And then when you were sitting for exams, you said you had to send the paper you wrote by post. So what did you do? Did you go to the British Council, wrote your exam, and did British Council send your paper by post, or were you the one who directly sent?
No, the final exam, what I described earlier was my exam, self-exam for the tutor.
Right.
Even for Rapid Results College, when I was preparing, studying, I would take the test and send it to the tutor to review. That I did myself. But the final exam that ACCA gave, ACCA would send the question paper to British Council, and when I sat on the table like this and they start ready, they will open the seal and give me the question paper, and when I finish, they will put my answer back, seal the, and I don't know if they posted or probably they use the diplomatic channel, diplomatic powers to send it back to England.
Right. What I also wanted to know, right? Let me back up a bit. So you were sitting, there was an invigilator to oversee what you were doing, but you were only one person to take the whole exam, right? So there was no anyone else.
I took a total of 11 and I repeated 12 times.
Right.
So it was 12 days, of course, over a course of 4 years.
Yeah.
But it was just me. There was invigilator, there was me.
And also there is this a different approach to ACCA, like you said, that experiences would also, there is the academic part where you have to pass the exams, and also there is an experience part that you have to fulfill to get a membership. And you talked about your experience in UN mission that helped you, other than getting the academic qualification. You passed all the papers, and then the experiences that combined into making you eligible for ACCA certification.
Right. Well, in a sense, we need to go briefly to my career as well. As I said, I started working at 16 as a bookkeeper and accountant.
Right.
But as I progressed in education, did my BCom and MCom, I also progressed in my career there. For some reason, I think I was meant to be an accountant.
Right.
So even in the colleges, I would get distinction in accounting, in ICOM, BCom, and masters, and so forth. So by the time I did 7 years in the United Mission to Nepal and started on ACCA journey, I wanted to also experience something other than accounting to see whether I can do the other things as well. So actually I worked for 2 years in Agriculture Marketing Corporation, and later that became Agriculture Inputs Corporation, which is the predecessor of Agriculture Input Limited these days, right? There I was as planning officer and later chief of planning. So because again circumstances allowed me to perform that, I was using many of the accounting mentality, accounting thinking, and statistics, basically in that planning function. So that was helpful. So I was about to finish the ACCA. My daily life those days would be I would wake up, start studying, then have DBT, go to work, come back in the evening and study, and that is how my life went. And in the same time I got married, and so by the time I finished United Mission and 2 years at Agriculture Inputs Corporation, there was an opening in Tribhuvan University for what they call Deputy Chief Finance Officer at that time. University was also looking for a Chief Finance Officer at the professor level. The requirement was a chartered accountant. But at that time there were about, I think, 13 or 14 chartered accountants who were busy in this profession, and nobody went to the university. So when I applied for Deputy Chief Finance Officer with my experience in United Mission and the work on ACCA, I got that position while I was still studying. So by the time I finished the ACCA, became a member, then University again advertised for the chief finance officer position, because
Right.
they would do that every 5 years or whatever, and became chief finance officer. So actually it was quite funny. I was chief finance officer, professor level at 29, and my contemporary other division chiefs were in their 50s.
Right.
So that was an interesting time. I had opportunity to learn from the old guards, as well as able to show new things. So unfortunately I had a good mentor as well. One Govinda Prasad Gorkhali used to be Deputy Auditor General, and when he retired there, the Vice Chancellor at that time, Suryawadar Sakya, asked him to come and advise the university on financial management.
Right.
And as soon as I and he met, we kind of bonded immediately, and he guided me on several issues. Then when I was in the university, a couple of things I think I still remember, I'm proud, is one is I created a consolidated budget
Right.
of the university system. So at that time, in addition to the TU head office, there were 10 institutes, 3 research centers, and 66 campuses. So we prepare a budget of all those and present to the University Senate for approval.
Right.
And that was one, bringing all that together, both capital and revenue budget, and getting approval.
Right.
And fortunately, because of my work in United Mission, I was aware of the offset printing facility. That is technical. Otherwise, it was stencil. I don't know if you have heard that.
Right.
People will type on a thin paper and then roll through the machine and through the ink.
So it was like the Gutenberg.
Right.
The books while you were
Right.
printed.
That used to be the system, but
Right.
I was aware of a foreign organization with a offset printing facility that was in Kirtipur itself.
Right.
So we produce in one page the whole budget, so to speak.
Right.
That was one part. The other part was, with the help of Mr. Gorkhali, I became aware of the fund accounting. Otherwise, when you study accounting at that time, BCom, and even to some extent some of the courses on ACCA, accounting was primarily mercantile accounting for business.
Right.
There was no concept of non-profit accountant, at least in Nepal they didn't know, or it used to be revenue accountant. But the fund accounting, you have to keep different funds separately and account for different funds. That was a concept I learned from Mr. Gorkhali. He lent me a book. And so we created chart of accounts using the fund accounting system. And we have, of course, general fund, there was capital fund, and there are endowment funds. And university was also managing a staff benefits fund, like Provident Fund and that sort of scheme. And was audited by the Auditor General of Nepal for the first time. This was 75, 76, around that time. And 3-4 years, Auditor General would audit the university account and submit the report, which was discussed in the parliament, Rashtra Panchayat. And so we had to go in front of the finance committee and respond to the query from the Auditor General at that time. So, well, I think it is like Dantya Katha these days, because the state of university as is today, what I hear, the financial situation. But those were, in a sense, golden days. With the creation of the new education system, when the university had taken over all private colleges, it was a consolidated, huge organization. We are still able to produce a consolidated budget and consolidated financial statement.
Right. So it's quite funny, like you have lived through a lot, right? Nowadays, technology is in everybody's hands, and in the past year or so, AI has also developed in leaps and bounds. But we are still talking about your journey where Nepal was in a situation where we are still using the old Gutenberg process of printing, and then you knowledgeable about offset printing and you used it there. And also you talked about introducing consolidated budgeting in the university. So how was budgeting done before you brought in the consolidated budgeting?
It is difficult. I will not be able to respond you fully. The reason is that before the new education policy of that time, each of the campuses operated on their own. Right. So, for example, let's say Patan campus. It was a government campus. Government ministry, education ministry gave budget directly to the Patan campus, and they spend as per the government rule, whatever they return. So when the new education system was implemented, Patan campus became part of the university campus. So actually when I joined in 2033, Nepali Samvat, that was 1 year after that integration. So what I can only assume is that the first time whatever contribution government made to these colleges, they gave. And then the private colleges, there was no contribution. It's from the fee. So the budget for the private they were doing their own way. They were generating revenue and spending, and I suppose paying teacher whatever is available. Not full salary, but whatever is available, they were paying teachers in the private colleges.
So they were acting independently of each other. So no direct tie up in the financial sense with the university. So they were a corporation of their own.
Exactly. The only linkage was the examination, because Tribhuvan University was giving the examination. So when the new education policy brought all the colleges under university, under 10 faculties, and those 10 faculties were part of the university, then the first batch in first year, I can only assume that whatever they were giving the previous year to the universities, they gave that. So, well, first or second year, my time, there was each college was separate. In a sense, we could not even find. One was also the printing system also facilitated, but we could not find the total of what was the total expenditure of the Institute of Humanities, or total budget of Institute of Humanities. I could not find that first year, because take an example, Pritnayan campus, a budget was given as a campus, but they were running 4 different faculties, humanities, commerce, science, maybe 3, right? So in order to separate that, to make a distinction by faculty and also by unit, this is what consolidated budget brought together.
And also talk me through the fund accounting part that you brought in after you were working for the university. Before fund accounting, what sort of accounting was used in the university?
Well, we could say very, generally the revenue accounting. So there was revenue and expenditure. That is all they recorded. So even for endowment, for example, the interest from an endowment would be part of revenue, and any medal given from that endowment would be part of expenditure. So it was all accumulated in one place. I'm making very simple example. So with the fund accounting, what happened is that if there is an endowment for a medal, we kept that as separate. There are 10,000 rupees. That was a big amount, because the gold was like 100 rupee a tola, so 100 rupee would be 1 tola gold medal. So the 10,000, this is our assets, which is in fixed deposit. Liability is a gold medal, and we got interest of, let's say, 100. then we spend 80 and 20 is the balance of that account.
Right.
That is how we started carrying, and that is the, in a simple sense, the concept of fund accounting.
So we are talking about your role in the university. So because we are talking about university, I want to back up a bit about your own experience on your journey in ACCA. You were studying ACCA. You were only one person studying ACCA in whole of Nepal, right? And I wanted to ask, what motivated you, because you had no peers to talk about this stuff to, right? What motivated you, and how were you able to help yourself with any questions that you might have regarding the course of study? There might be a lot of questions that you couldn't understand at the moment, right? And how did you work through that? What is your motivation, and how did you help yourself to study the course?
Yeah, it is very, very personal,
Yeah.
and in fact interesting, because when I finished high school,
Right.
I had applied to science college, and they had not published the admission list yet. And one of my close friends had already taken admission in commerce,
Right.
in the Nepal Commerce College in Patan.
Yeah.
So he asked me to say, well, why don't you come with us and just go sit in the class while you are waiting whether you will get admission in science.
Right.
So when I went there, I heard a sound from the classroom, a few words, which stuck with me.
Right.
Because I found, and that is bookkeeping, accounting,
Right.
and the professor was saying, receiver debit, giver credit, what comes in debit, what goes out credit. It sounded like a poetry,
Right.
you know, so that attracted, and that's, I then decided, okay, I'm going to study commerce, and forgot about science, went to commerce.
Right.
The professor who was doing that was late Sundarman Shrestha. He was teaching that, and so I was naturally quite attracted to him. And while I was still in the college, he left teaching and went to study for chartered accountant. You might know, he passed away a few years ago, but he was one of the premier chartered accountant. So that struck me as chartered accountancy is the pinnacle of accounting. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
So of course I could not go immediately, family reason, financial reason, and after I finished everything and I was in United Mission, then I wanted to do something, because for like 6 years, BCom and MCom, I was working and studying. When suddenly study finished, I felt kind of a vacuum there.
Right.
So I wanted to do something. There were options to study law, but fortunately, as I said again, I met Dorothy Broom in ACCA, and she showed me the path.
Right.
So I jumped on it, and because I mean, if you want to do something different, do something really important, not a little thing. But about your, being alone, I have to again, whoever introduced me or however I selected, I don't exactly remember, but Rapid Result College produced excellent material covering the whole course.
Right.
So I would study, and there would be very few things I would not understand. And if there were a few things I could write
Right.
and send with my monthly
Assessments.
assessment and send the text, and they would respond back. So no, I couldn't discuss with anybody. There was nobody to discuss with, because all the chartered accountants were very busy with their profession. I didn't have access to anybody, but the material of this Rapid Results College was very good.
Right. So back after high school, you decided to go to science college, but you stumbled upon accounting, and you also got to know about the chartered accountancy course. But I also wanted to help understand the viewers that back then, if you wanted to do chartered accountancy, then you had to go to India to study.
Right.
So that was the reason that you couldn't go into chartered accountancy back then, because you had to move to another country to study that. And then while you were working as a bookkeeper, then you were introduced about ACCA.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about what ACCA did for you, right? After membership, what opportunities were you able to get after the membership?
Well, one obvious thing was that after I became a member of ACCA, I became the 15th, I believe, chartered accountant in Nepal.
Right.
So, as I was working in the university as Deputy Chief Finance Officer, and the Chief Finance Officer position opened up,
Right.
asking for a chartered accountant to apply, I was the only one,
Yeah.
because other 14 were busy in this profession, right? So completing this course and becoming a member opened the door for me to be a first Chief Finance Officer
Right.
at the professor level in the university. So that was the beginning. Of course, because of that position, then I was working with this campus 66 campus chiefs, deans and executive directors who have much higher level of intellect than myself. So that was a great opportunity to learn.
Right.
Sometimes it is also embarrassing because many of my professors have become colleagues,
Right.
and they were running the principal. They were running colleagues, and they had to come to me for any budgetary request and so forth.
Right.
So it was funny. That is the obvious advantage. But well, many things. The course itself expanded my horizon beyond what I learned in YumCom.
Right.
Although now there is a debate, I think people are struggling to get ACCA recognized as BA.
Right.
But at that time, everybody saw that ACCA brought more than even YumCom.
Right.
So actually, if you are interested, the other episode, it may be useful to the ACCA colleagues right now. When I completed ACCA, became a member,
Right.
I submitted my papers for the determination of equivalence. There is a curriculum center in TU which determines the external qualification to Nepali qualification.
Right.
And first they came up with it is equivalent to BCom.
Right.
And that was not acceptable to me because I had spent 4 years, not full time, but 4 years to gain that qualification after my master's.
Right.
And how can it be equal to BCom?
Right.
Therefore, I submitted an appeal saying that ACCA is a professional qualification. It is not an academic qualification. Comparing with academic qualification is not appropriate.
Right.
But professionally, you have to say whether equivalent to the chartered accountant or not. Because mind you, the mindset at that time, chartered accountant, it's, the term, the position itself has a special aura.
Right.
So they went back, and in the process, reviewing process, they asked British Council on what is the difference between ACCA and ICAEW.
Yeah.
And I still have a copy. British Council wrote that basically both are part of CCAB, Charter Accountancy Body. And there is a slight difference is that the charter accountants are more audit oriented and ACCA are more management accounting oriented.
Right.
And I didn't mind that because actually I was in the company, in the industry, so to speak, not in practice. So then they say, okay, ACCA is equivalent to chartered accountant, which opened at that time before ICANN. Auditor's General Office used to be the regulatory body for auditors.
Right.
So that opened me to be, well, for the first 5 years, say category B, and after 5 years, I would have been category A auditor in Nepal.
Right.
And I didn't stay in Nepal. I left Nepal before I completed 5 years, or just after I completed 5 years. So I did not apply to be A at that time. But that is the ACCA opened all these doors for me.
Right. So after the university, you applied for the office of the Auditor General. You worked there?
No. Office of the Auditor General would register auditors, regulatory body, who is auditor, who is not an auditor.
Right.
At that time, the rule was that there are other C and D category, but if you have passed bachelor's and worked for 5 years, you would be category B. Or if you are a charter accountant, you would be category B. If you are a charter accountant with 5 years of experience, you would be category A auditor. That is what Auditor General used to do. So I had registered myself at category B after I passed BCom and 5 years of experience. Now with ACCA, I would be eligible to be category A as well.
Right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. So in your professional journey after university, were you in Nepal and in other organization, or you?
No, what happened was actually it is a kind of continuation of my earlier study, studying fund accounting, studying budgeting for the university. What I realized is that what we have studied in college or even ACCA or MCom and BCom has not prepared me for financial management of non-profit organization for the university. So therefore I started after 7 years in university, after 6 years, I started looking for some education, just as you are looking for to learn more. What can I do to improve my work here at university? And I found a program called Financial Management in University. In one of the university in US, Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. So I spoke in the university, and with Vice Chancellor's permission, I went there for a year. It was a 1 year program. I went there, so I was actually on study leave from the university. But what happened is that when I arrived at the university, the professor who was giving that course had moved to another university. So I was kind of stranded. It was not easy for me to, because I had scholarship in that university, I had managed that. I cannot just go to another university, so there was a question of what to do. For one semester.
So you are looking to go to the university, but because of the professor that was teaching there, so you wanted to
because
study
of
under
the
him.
course. Because of the course, financial management in the university was given by a professor in Southern Illinois University. But the professor left that university, went to Washington University in St. Louis, another place.
So the course was also
I don't know if whether he took the course or not, but this course was dropped from the curriculum when I arrived there. So therefore, either I had to take something else. So for the first semester, actually that was in College of Education. So for the first semester, I took different courses of College of Education. That could be, that was research oriented, statistics oriented, and could be applicable in other courses as well. And after a semester, I decided I should go for business administration. So I took the GMAT, then moved to the business college, did masters, and then at that time I decided, well, maybe I should do PhD. So I stayed there and resigned university here and stayed to continue my PhD. And fortunately for me, I was also working in the budget office of that university. I met the budget director through my professor, and some of the things I did, he supported, and then he kind of financed me, the research assistant, for the next 3-4 years to complete my PhD. So after the PhD, then I was thinking whether I should go to Nepal. What do I do? Well, I could always come to my job, but I was already at the highest level, done what I could done, already 7 years. Above that was political. It was even 40 years ago, politics was not that great. So I said, well, if I get an opportunity to work in the United Nations organization, then I can remain outside, but also indirectly also serving my country. The UN, Nepal is part of the UN. So I started looking for different opportunity and then landed with World Food Program.
Right. And was that role outside of Nepal or was it in Nepal?
No, outside Nepal. I was still in the United States,
Right.
finishing my PhD. Started applying,
Mhm.
and this position was in Rome, Italy.
Right.
I went there for interview, and they selected me. Actually, I went for interview in January, and I started only in August because I wanted to complete my dissertation
Mhm.
before leaving the town in the United States.
Right.
So the World Food Program was kind enough to wait for me for 8 months,
Right.
and then I joined in Rome.
Right. And what was your role in the WFP?
Yeah, the title was budget analyst. See, it was relatively one of the entry level,
Right.
you know, and in international organization, well, that is the position they had opening. I applied, they took it, so I didn't have much complaint.
Right.
But basically, I could do a higher level job as well.
Yeah.
So it was a budget analyst, and for the first 2 years, I did some things beyond what was asked for me, so to speak.
Mhm.
Because one of the things I say to the new people I meet, and they say, what is the secret of your success? Or,
Yeah.
I don't know it is success or not, but I say 2 things. One is that always do more than what is expected of you.
Yeah.
And do only if you love something, because you have to give 100%. If you cannot give 100%, you cannot be perfect in that job.
Mhm.
So anyway, I did a few things and came to the attention of the executive director, chief executive. So within 2 years, I got a promotion, and in another 2 years, I was chief of budget within 4 years. Then another 2 years, that position became a director level in the UN system, that is a very senior position.
Right.
So in those processes in WFP, did many things, and one of the key things is in mid-90s, together with many other colleagues, I was involved in devising a new financial policy for the organization, which has to be technically worked out and then sold to the member countries and applied. Yeah, if I may just complete my route there,
Sure.
after 6 or 7 years, then what is started, and this is what happens in our organization is normally, when I first went there as a P3, a junior officer,
Yeah.
and did something unusual, everybody was kind of praising, wow, great, he's doing great, all that. But over time, when I progressed in the career, the same people were in the same position. I
Yeah.
became their colleagues.
Right.
And then people started being jealous.
Right.
And then some of the thing that I heard, and obviously others also heard, is that, well, he may be director of budget, but he does not know operation, he knows only accounting. This kind of complaint. Then I took the challenge. Okay, why don't I become director of operations then?
Right.
And I offered to go outside of Rome, outside of finance division, and get involved in operation.
Yeah.
And the management at that time listened to me, and I went to Sri Lanka as director, country director in Sri Lanka. The position there actually was a lower level than what I was in Rome, but I took the challenge. And again, did something reasonably well. And so on one hand, my colleagues in the operations started, now you are one of us.
Right.
And then after 3 years, I went back to headquarters with a promotion as a director of finance, wider finance.
So the headquarters was back in Italy, or
back in Italy?
Okay.
In Italy. So except for those 3 years in Sri Lanka, I spent 21 years in Rome all the time.
Right.
So again, after 4 years in finance, it was not an easy job, and there was change in leadership and all that, and also the organization needed some expertise differently. Then for 1.5 years, I became director of change management,
Right.
working with the chief executive. And there were many things, that was 2006-7, many changes happening in the UN system, one of which was creating an ethics function in each of the UN agency that
Right.
is coming up. UN headquarters had already opened ethics office, and WFP also wanted to open the ethics office, and the chief executive at that time thought I should do that job, establish the office. So for that 1 year, I was director of ethics in creating the ethics office and some of its rules, regulation, procedures, and so forth.
Right.
Then at the end of that, then there was opening for the inspector general and director of oversight.
Right.
Again, chief executive director asked me if I would like to do that, and said, of course, a loyal officer. I said, fine. And
Right.
so I served in that 4.5 years.
So this was also in the WFP.
in WFA in Rome. This is all in Rome.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So an interesting career trajectory comes right when you are talking about what you have been doing, right? So you didn't think any role was lower than you. If you could gain experience and you could prove yourself there, and you'll get promoted, or you can move ahead in the career. And also you were a finance guy predominantly, but you took it as a challenge that I can be an operational guy as well. So you went into operations into Sri Lanka and did a great job there. And so you were a person who could actually embrace change, right, for yourself. So it was a natural progression that you were heading the change management department in WFP, and then through your own work ethics, so a natural progression to ethics, and then to you've been to every division, you've done everything. Now you are in a position where you now inspect what is being done. So I see a very good and natural progression, but also that it comes from your own motivation, your own professional ethics, but also a desire to learn and improve, and also help others improve in the organization as well. So quite motivating. So in the WFP, you were the Inspector General, you said, and then let's continue from there. What was your journey?
Well, thank you. Yes, actually you articulated my journey quite well, and I hadn't thought it that way. One thing I want to add, that sometimes things that you do unknowingly comes out in a different way.
Yeah.
In WFP, because it is a worldwide organization, it is difficult to manage exactly people and position.
Right.
There is a policy that one can be assigned one grade higher or one grade lower than your own grade.
Right.
That does not change your benefits, but the position in that office may be one grade higher or one grade lower.
Right.
So that is why that was one grade lower. I could go. And later on, and when I became director of finance and I had to move people from different places and again try to match that, people would complain.
Right.
And say that I don't want to go one grade lower than mine. And then I was able to show them, that doesn't affect. Your performance is what counts.
Right.
Look at me. I went one grade lower, but then I came back with one grade higher with
Right.
promotion. So that was quite, in a sense, motivating what I did myself to others.
Right.
So one of the change things when I was in change management that was happening in the UN system was this concept of oversight, external oversight. And this is the beginning, was that after the second Iraq war in 2001, 2002, there was a commission set up in the United Nations to examine how UN performed after the First World War,
Right.
post Iraq War of 91, to manage the proceeds from the Iraqi oil. Because what had happened is in 91 when Iraq invaded Kuwait, then the Allied forces overcame that. Then they had created a program called Oil for Food program, meaning that all the proceeds of the oil revenue of Iraq was put in an escrow account. Then the United Nations was asked to use that money for food and medicine. So then there was some of the donors were not happy, and they, after the second Iraq war, they wanted to examine that, and a commission, a Volcker, a former chairman of Federal Reserve, was tasked to review how UN did. And there are a long report, but one of the report that he said was some of the things were not done right, and internal audit also did not pick that up. The reason is that there was no one overseeing the internal audit, whether they examine the right risk, they examine everything. There should be some external party looking at that. So that is the origin for a committee that I serve now. You mentioned earlier, Independent Audit Advisory Committee. But other organizations also were coming up with that concept. And this was about 10 to 15 years ago. There were not enough professionals to be independent. So initially the UN system reached out to the people of the profession who have some knowledge of the UN system, but not from their own organization. So many organizations started creating oversight committee. For example, in WFP itself, when I was there, we created an external oversight committee. The chairman was former Auditor General of the World Bank. You know, you have to bring from somebody. So that practice was going on, and as I was about to retire, then some of the colleagues from other UN agency asked me if I would like to serve. So then I joined this oversight. They have different names, but Oversight Committee of UNRWA in Palestinian, in Amman. I served there for 4 years, 2 years as chairman towards the end. Concurrently, there was some overlap. Again, I served in the WMO, World Meteorological Organization in Geneva.
So this was after you retired from WFP?
After retire. 6 years in WMO. Then towards the end of WMO, there was opening, and I joined the UNHCR Oversight Committee for 6 years. And as I go from Oversight Committee to Oversight, time has changed, and some of the things have, the profession is maturing, and I myself am learning. So as I go forward, I am able to contribute a little more, learn from another organization. So after UNHCR, then 3 years ago, there was this opening opportunity in the UN Independent Audit Advisory Committee. Unlike other organizations where it is selected by either the chief executive or the board chairman, in the UN it is elected position, and it is elected from among the regions. So there is one position for Asia and Pacific, and Nepal nominated me, and I was endorsed by the Asia Pacific. Then with their endorsement, General Assembly appointed for 3-year term. That's my current, and this is my 3rd year.
So you sat in oversight committees in different organizations in the UN umbrella, let's say. And so you served in one, and then when you finished in one, you again moved to another committees, but there was also some overlaps, And then now you are currently serving as vice chair in the oversight committee for UN, and you said that there are members from each region in the sense each continent.
It's a 5-member committee. There is one member from US. There is always one member from US. There is one member from Russia. I think it is always Russia, unless I am mistaken. There could be Eastern Europe as well.
Right.
There is one from Latin America, one from Africa, and one from Asia and Pacific.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So it's set for the North America and for Russia, and also for Europe in a sense.
No, Europe, I think they combine OECD. So US represents the OECD interest.
Okay. So by Asia, we don't just mean Asia, but Asia Pacific region, right?
Asia and Pacific, yeah.
Right, right. So we do see that there is a natural progression for you to be in the UN Advisory Committee currently, but like you said, it is done through election.
Right.
And how does someone from a small country like Nepal get to be in an oversight committee in the UN?
Well, I think time and plays a role.
Right.
In this committee, India was a member for the first 2 years, for 2 periods, 6
Right.
years. Then Philippines were the member for 2 periods. In both cases, retired Auditor General of these countries were the members. So
Yeah.
it was all government auditors. And my predecessor was from Indonesia. He was Deputy Auditor General.
Right.
So what had happened was that 3 years ago, when I was in New York in the meeting of Oversight Committee chair, I became aware that Asia and Pacific had not yet elected someone to be in that committee.
Right.
3 years ago. So when I inquired around, it was still open.
Right.
I was not sure because so far it had always been the Auditor General Office from all countries. But nevertheless, I spoke to the ambassador, Nepalese ambassador in New York, and the foreign secretary here, exploring the possibility, would it be possible to nominate me, because it seemed like I know what needs to be done.
Right.
And they supported me. So the Nepal government supported and made the nomination. But there was also a twist, because my nomination was made 5 years ago.
Right.
However, that first time Indonesia wanted to be in the committee. So something happened behind the screen.
Right.
Probably Indonesia gave something for Nepal, and Nepal had to give that up.
Right.
So the embassy called me to say that we cannot pursue this year, maybe next time.
Right.
I said fine, and but our embassy seemed to have done a good negotiation. That after 1 year, 1 term, we will be in the committee.
Right.
So just before the term of my predecessor ended, I heard from our embassy saying that we are the only nominee, and I was pleased. And finally, other thing became when Asia Pacific endorsed, General Assembly endorsed. So here I am,
Right.
the first non-Auditor General member in that committee.
Right. So it's quite an unusual choice, not in the sense of the professionalism, but also unusual choice because everyone before you was from government agencies, but you were an independent member. So you were independent in the independent advisory committee, but you are also independent as a sense in professional setting as well.
True.
So independent of the country as well, right? So and how has that helped, or what different perspective do you think you bring when you are sitting for the committee and looking at reports and making your suggestions?
Yeah. Well, I think committee members to a large extent are independent in the professionally.
Right.
So for me, perspective from being inside the UN organization is more helpful, because here committee members coming from outside only see from outside.
Yeah.
What is the problem inside? They don't know.
Yeah.
So in fact, I say that I have in the organization in the current parlor in control system, they say first level, second level, third level control. First level control is the operator who has to make sure that everything is correct. Second level is the supervisor who has to give policy and guidance and then make sure that the operator is doing a good job. Third level is the internal audit, an independent internal reviewer. So I have done all three jobs as a country director at the first level, as director of finance, budget, change management, ethics, second level, and as inspector general as third level. Because of that, my perspective is always unique compared to what comes from them. Because all others are government auditor looking at how government is operating, but I am coming from inside. So that has been quite useful. I think I have been able to bring some changes which hopefully will be useful. And so far as the independence is concerned, we are fortunate in the sense that I don't have to report to anybody in the government. Nobody asks me either what is happening or what you need to do. That shouldn't happen. I cannot say that for all other members. There are certain other members who are in regular touch with their government because their government wants them to know, you know. So they will remain on their professionally. They will remain honest, but they may have some reporting requirement to their government.
So they have some obligations. They might have some obligations, though they are ethically bound as an independent person. But also they might have some influences that they are constantly needing to push back, right? Or if they are able to push back or not is a question. But they do have that influence around them.
Well, I think I should clarify that in the committee itself, they are true professional. They are independent, and you know they with the highest ethical order of the profession. But what I meant is that they maybe some of the government may ask them what is happening, what are you doing about this, blah blah, those kind of things. And they may have to report on what is happening. Not that anything or not that everything is secret. We produce our annual report and then it becomes a public, right? For example, let's say if we committee is not happy with the functioning of one of the senior official, let's say, and we are talking inside, it will not be appropriate for that information to go outside before our report actually comes out. So there may be some situation like that. But fortunately in Nepal nobody has interfered with my work, and I'm happy about that.
So this is where this is what you are doing currently. You are enjoying your retired life, but also helping the UN to be more robust in their oversight, so that as an organization that does work in most of the countries worldwide, or almost all of the countries worldwide, they are doing things according to their policies and everything is in good shape as an organization. So when we are talking about now, when we are talking about your, you have an illustrious career, and also someone coming from Nepal, and you know, as your career has progressed and you have moved to the highest level of the profession, there are people that look up to you and want you to help them understand or how they could achieve you know, professional excellence in their career as well, to move to better and higher levels in their career. And what would you suggest someone, let's say someone who is looking to accounting or finance career, just looking at thinking about making that as a career, someone who is in the middle of their career, maybe completed their certifications and 1 or 2 years in, and also someone who might be a bit more already in that career, but they want to go to that higher level, right? So someone just starting out, someone already certified, and 1 or 2 years in, and someone with a good many years of experience, but also a lot of time left for them to move ahead in their career?
I think the requirement or the situation is the same across all category. As I said briefly earlier, to be successful, I believe you have to do more than what others expect of you. So just doing what is asked for you is not sufficient. So for example, if you are a section officer and you do just what is required of a section officer, that does not demonstrate that you can be under secretary, right? So you have to do more than what is expected of you. The second thing is, how can you do more than expected? You cannot do that with partial devotion. You have to be totally dedicated. You have to be totally concentrated in what you are doing. That means you have to love what you do. If you are doing something half-heartedly, you cannot achieve the best result. Okay, so therefore these two mantras are: love what you do, and if you are not loving what you do, leave that. Look for something that you love, so that you can dedicate 100% of your attention. Love what you do and do more than what others expect of you. Now, I would add one thing in view of your question, is that be open to learn. So at each level, you are always learning. You interact with people, you are learning. You may learn new tools for your trade. You may learn new opportunity that is there, but you have to be open. Nobody knows everything. Therefore, you don't know everything. Make that as your first mantra. You know, thinking that I know everything, now I should get more reward. That does not help. So be open and receptive. You are always learning, and use the information and reach out. And if you need some assistance in thinking through in the profession, for example, in the UN system, if somebody wants to join the UN system, what is the opportunity? What avenues are there? How can I approach? People like me and others will be happy to do that. In fact, I should have added earlier, after retirement, I was engaged in developing two institutions, so to speak. One was WFP Alumni Network. So we created for the first time network of alumni of WFP in 2015, and I was president for 4 years. One of the main thing we did is that we collected the informal, non-official experiences of the people of when they have retired. So we published 3 books. And one of them is quite interesting. We published a book on experience on dealing with drought in Southern Africa. Because one of the colleagues said every 10 years there is drought in Southern Africa. And he was involved in 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and even 2004. Other we did in innovations in WFP. So why WFP has been so agile and how does it work? Different people had different experience. So that is one institution we established, and that was I was president for 4 years. Then in 21, 15, I think I left in 19. Then at the same time in Nepal, I was also involved together with a couple of other colleagues creating an institution called FIPMO, Former International Professionals of Multilateral Organization. So all the Nepalese who have served abroad with the UN system, we have come together. We try to use our experience and knowledge for Nepal in different avenues. At one time, we collaborated with the Auditor General's office when the new constitution was approved, and Auditor General had to audit all 3 levels of government. In some of the thematic area, our colleagues contributed. So that is still active in Nepal, and I bring this because the member of this group, all the former, are quite happy to mentor young people who want some help or some guidance on the UN system. Not only on administrative matter, but also on technical matters. We have those on healthcare specialists, we have the agriculture specialists, accounting, auditing, and various area.
Right.
So there are people like that who are quite willing to help people and reach out. FIPMO also has a website, and this has information on how to connect.
Right.
And if you want to reach out to certain person with certain expertise within that group, you can do that.
Right.
And be open.
Right. So what we'll do is we'll put in information in the descriptions for you to go and look at, and maybe you could reach out to the person that you think would help you understand how the UN system works, and if and how you can get into the UN system if you want to. So in this high note, you talked about when you want to get better or you want to move ahead in your professional life, you have to love what you do and you have to do more than you are asked for. And you talked about always having that that thing in your mind that you do not know everything. You have to be curious. So you have to be humble to know that you do not know what you do not know, and seek out information and knowledge.
Absolutely. May I make one correction?
Yes, sure.
You have to do more than expected of you, not asked. Asked is different.
Right.
Expected. You need to try to imagine what other might expect and do even more than that.
So, asked might be, let's say, let's put them into 3 tiers. So the lower tier would be something you are being asked for in your role. Expectation would be a notch above what you're being asked for, and the thing that would help you in your success is doing more than what you are asked for and also what you are expected of.
Absolutely, yeah.
With that note, we'd like to end this podcast, and thank you very much for this insightful conversation. Thank you very much for sharing your experience, and I know for sure that people watching, young professionals looking into careers in accounting, finance, would look at your experience, your career, and get great insights and help them, motivate them to get even better in their own careers. So thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. Thank you very much for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushilji. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story. If it encourages anyone to pursue further, I'll be happy to be of help.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.